Hello, everyone, and welcome to Origo's webinar series. My name is Kelsey Pierce, and I'm a marketing specialist for events here at Origo Software Technologies. I want to thank you all for joining us for our first webinar of the year. We're really excited to kick things off with a powerful discussion on the AI revolution, how it's changing your work, your projects, and your future. Before we dive in, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping reminders. Today's webinar will be recorded, and all registered participants will receive a copy of the recording along with the slides after the session. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A chat box below. We'll answer as many of them as possible at the end of the session. I'm thrilled to be joined by our VP of Marketing, Richard Kramer, who will be moderating today's session.
Hi, Kelsey.
And now I am excited speakers. First, we have Jeramie Brown, the Chief of Information Technology Division at the Nevada Department. Jeramie is a seasoned IT leader with a strong background in information assurance and cybersecurity. A retired U.S. Air Force veteran, Jeramie has spent the last 8 years at the Nevada Department of Transportation, where he plays a critical role in securing infrastructure and advancing cybersecurity initiatives. His expertise spans in IT leadership, information security, strategic planning, and risk management, making him a valuable voice in the evolving landscape of AI and cybersecurity. Jeramie, it's great to have you with us.
Kelsey, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation.
So are we. And next we have Brad Blevins, the Executive Director of Strategy and Organization Resilience at Metro-North Railroad. Brad is a U.S. Army infantry veteran and a government leadership practitioner with over 20 years of experience. He specializes in strategic planning, AI governance, data analytics, and resilience planning. Brad focuses on helping agencies make inquiry-based, data-driven decisions, strengthen operation, and ensuring long-term sustainability. Brad, we're excited to have you.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
And finally, we have Joe Pringle, development leader for generative AI at AWS. Joe is passionate about helping large enterprises harness AI technologies to work faster and smarter. With deep technical expertise in generative AI, responsible AI, machine learning, and cloud infrastructure, Joe combines business strategies with technical depth to drive innovation and build strong industry partnerships. Joe, it's great to have you. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Kelsey, and a big thanks from me to everybody in our audience for taking your time out of your day to join us this afternoon. Very exciting. So as I was preparing for this webinar, I was trying to remember when the first time I sort of heard about AI as a topic in the last, 5-10 years came up. It's been sort of an ongoing topic throughout my career in technology, but I do remember sitting at the dinner table a few years ago with my son. My son's 18 now, he's in 12th grade, and he does art in school. So he was talking about AI art and how bad it was and jobs for AI art and so on. And I was trying to figure out when that was, and I had to go back and actually look. And so according to Google, this idea of this trend of AI sort of started to pick up at the back half of 2022. So sort of by Q3, Q4 2022, we were all talking about AI. And so it's about 3 years. We're coming up on 3 years into this AI revolution, if you like. And I think we're starting to see some very interesting applications and uses of AI. I see it's kind of going from sort of a tech demo or alpha part, and now we're kind of in real applications with real uses. It's very, very exciting. And we're seeing it in art, in music. I'm seeing it, when I'm watching YouTube or TV, I see commercials for it all the time. I know even at Origo, our own product and marketing teams are using AI tools in interesting ways, maybe not in the ways that we initially expected. So one thing we've recently found out just in the last couple of weeks is there's good AI tools to kind of capture video from your product. So you have a product, you want to make a little product video or what have you. There's really good AI tools that can grab that, do that sort of screen capture part for you, which was not something we thought was the way we'd use AI just even a few months ago. So very interesting. I do want to declare, though, that no AI was used in preparation for this webinar. This is a 100% human-powered webinar we have going on today. So we're going to dive into the topics that you see on the screen there. We'll talk about using chatbots and natural language. We'll talk about analytics and risk management, and then also look at adoption and some of the softer or human challenges that we may need to address in the coming years. So before we get to our first topic, though, we have a poll question for everybody in our audience. Kelsey, if you want to just explain that.
Yes, we really want to hear from our audience, whether you're currently using AI within your role or you're interested in using AI. Where do you specifically believe that within the government operations, AI would benefit the most? Is this in project planning, resource allocation, risk management, automating administrative tasks, or other? We just really want to see kind of what we're either currently doing or what we think AI could potentially help with. And then we'll just give that a few
Give folks a few moments.
minutes.
Yeah. Planning, resources, risk management, automation.
And just give it a few more seconds as we're getting everyone. All right.
All right, let's see what it's looking like. Okay.
An astounding 54% voting automating administrative tasks. Definitely in doing the research for this, we were seeing that quite often, that being one of the most common use cases for AI within organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Risk management was not as high as I thought it would be. We're going to talk a little bit about risk management, so that's good. All right, let's move on. So we want to start with sort of just talking about the big picture issue at hand, if you like, AI. We've seen quite a few reports from big 5 consulting firms, system integrators like E&Y. That you see on the screen there. And that one, this is actually from June last year. So stuff is moving really quickly. But as of June last year, about 60%, 70% of government agencies reported using AI in some capacity. And you'll see idea generation and summarization of information seem to be the most popular uses according to this study. So I'd like to start with Brad. Brad, just tell us about, just how has this AI journey been for you and the folks at North Metro Railroad? How are you approaching this whole topic?
Yeah, sure, Richard. I appreciate that. And again, nice to meet everyone. So here I'm representing Metro North Railroad, which is one of the 6 agencies of New York Metropolitan Transportation Authority, New York MTA. We're the largest transportation authority in the country, the United States right now. And I'll say, Richard, we're pretty much in alignment with your post-pandemic 2022 timing, as you said, around 2 years or so, 3. And so I'll mention that, and I'll talk about kind of our priorities. I was a little surprised at those results, though, from the poll. So that's interesting, what we're seeing from other players and the background and the industries that are represented here. We've actually taken a little bit of a different approach. We're not focused on the administration right now. Some pockets within our employee base are. We have about 80,000 employees, including union agreement and non-agreement. All in, it's about 80,000 in the Metro and New York area. That includes New York and Connecticut. And we're really focused in 3 areas. So one is, you've got it on here, the 59% in the center is brainstorming topics and ideas. That's a very big push in our organization. We're combining that with research and benchmarking. And then we apply the new ideas from AI to the research and benchmarking. And I'll kind of lead us into here at MTA New York and Metro North Railroad. We take that AI information and we're really trying to apply the AI in a couple of technical areas. So the first phase we're looking at is anything where AI can help us with safety, security, and customer delivery. And then after that, we move into our second phase is going to be looking at how can AI help us with, I will call it better business, which maybe some of the administration duties you mentioned in the previous poll would fall into. But better business really falls into efficiency, optimization, predictive maintenance, which I know we'll get into in our questions later. But some of the projects in that first phase we're definitely focused on is really around, and I say security, safety, and service delivery, is around things such as AI-aided trespasser detection systems, train door detection systems, precision LiDAR data for infrastructure changes that we need to be aware of, such as retaining walls, or we have very old historical buildings. As well as using AI, we've already started doing this to detect vegetation and infrastructure changes out on the right of way, where our trains are moving through to and from. So a lot of that is where we are trying to make sure that we're using the AI to make it better for our customers, better for our workers, safer, et cetera. And then we're going to start moving more into kind of the nice to haves, which is AI helping us with efficiency, optimization, administrative tasks, and so on and so forth. So that's really where we are as far as the first couple of years. And I can get in a little bit later, I think, in one of your next questions on the panel, Richard, around how we've approached this from a governance and risk management standpoint.
Yeah, great, thanks. Very interesting. So yeah, you obviously have a clear sort of categorization or approach there. I'm going to switch over to Jeramie. Jeramie, tell us about Nevada DOT and how you guys are approaching the topic.
So, we talked earlier about the when we started thinking about AI, we actually go back a little further than that, or at least I do, because in the cybersecurity space, we've been using AI and machine learning and deep learning in our tools for years, right? Well before any type of generative AI had become popular. So we've been thinking about AI and how we can use it. The introduction of readily available generative AI tools has really transformed that, though, because now we're looking at tools that can not only use that machine learning or deep learning, but then you can tack on Gen AI onto that and really start massaging that information and getting to the heart of what you're trying to find out, and really getting to the information that's going to help you make smart, timely decisions for your organization. And so that's where we're headed with NDOT, is we're trying to get to the point where we can take the data that we have, we can use the generative AI tools that are available to us, and we can find the real meat in that data, because we have large data sets, and really make data-driven decisions. Because our goal is to be able to take that data, make those data-driven decisions, then we can allocate budget appropriately. We can figure out what areas of roadway or bridges or other assets that NDOT controls, what areas are underserved, what areas, when we talk about the predictive maintenance that was on the slide earlier, like that's our goal, right? Is to get to the point where we can take all of this data that we have, we can query it, we can use that Gen AI tool to really drive where we're going to allocate money, how we're going to plan, and then we can present that information to the legislature and give them hard data on why we're making the decisions we're making. Of course, we present it to the legislature and there's politics involved, but at least if we are able to provide that information, then they understand the impact of the decisions they're making. And we can provide it in a much cleaner format than maybe we can produce today. And so we're very excited about that. And then, looking at the previous slide, really, those percentages didn't surprise me all that much. We're just very excited about this whole opportunity. And we've gone through the process of working with some partners to get our environment ready for generative AI, so that we can start providing those tools to our end users. And so, we're looking at summarizing text and information, especially right now. Nevada is going through our legislative cycle. We have an AI tool that can help us go through bill draft requests, like proposed bills, and figure out how is this going to affect NDOT. Compare this to our our transportation policies and our Nevada revised statutes, and where does that fall? Because right now we have people that do that, but imagine how much we could streamline their processes and give them the tools to look at hundreds and hundreds of bills in a 6-month period in a much cleaner way, right? So we're looking at all of those. And then just helping summarize text and information is really key for us.
That's really interesting on the bills. You know, I hadn't thought of that because you'll often see on the news, right? There's a whatever usually in DC, there's some vote coming up, and they're talking about, oh, we didn't even have time to read the bill. Like we're voting on it, right, and we don't have time to read it. So I'd never thought of that, like being able to go through, like, because you know, these things can be 100 pages, 300 pages, like really long. That's a great use. That's a great example. Yeah. All right.
To get that summary of that bill and really understand what the meat of that bill does, right? That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's really good. All right, let's switch over to Joe. So Joe, you have a slightly different lens because you work with multiple clients. So how would you sort of put the whole AI topic in perspective for AWS and all the clients you work with?
Yeah, I'll kind of build on what Jeramie and Bradford were saying, in that I've worked with customers before the last few years. A lot of what we saw customers working on were predictive use cases with structured data, and so like with traditional machine learning. And so like when I've been at AWS about 6 years, and so for the first several years, a lot of my emphasis, a lot of my effort was working with customers on that. Like, how do we make better predictions, better decisions with structured data? And then starting around 3 years ago with large language models, like all of a sudden, unstructured information became much easier to work with. And that just opened up all these new possibilities for AI and, being able to just make sense of documents or text fields in databases or other transcripts of conversations like that. All of a sudden, like we can automate certain aspects of that. And so what I've seen over the last couple of years in particular has been a shift towards that, where a lot of we still do all those predictive use cases, and that's core to so many things. But now we can process emails and text and information and conversations in new ways. But the big but there is these new models, they have they make new types of mistakes, and we've all heard about hallucinations and things. And so in my world, I work exclusively with government customers. Like, mistakes are a problem, and so a lot of the use cases I've seen, most activity are related to task automation, where we're working on the boring, repetitive tasks that waste a lot of time for humans, so they can focus. And the more we can automate those, the more they can do the important stuff. And at the same time, we're trying to figure out, like, how do we make these new tools more reliable, more trustworthy, so we can start to kind of go up the food chain and work on higher stakes types of. So that's just a couple observations of the types of things I've been seeing.
Yeah, great. That's I mean, we're right in the thick of it right now. It's hard to see. I mean, that's an interesting point. Like, we might do all the automation stuff first, and then move on to the more complex stuff as we go through it. Thanks. So okay, let's move on and talk about some of these, like, specific use cases, I guess, for AI. Like, for example, using these chatbots, using this natural language to talk to a computer system. Rather than writing some sort of SQL query or running some kind of, structured report kind of thing that you're building out. I think this is a big part of what people are thinking about nowadays with AI. And I think, some of the benefits are quite obvious. So I want to start with Jeramie. Jeramie, anything like this being used at Nevada DOT right now? Where do you see it going? That kind of thing.
So as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of different things that we're working on, and most of what the AI projects we have going on are in test phases, or a small group of people are gaining access to them and really working on them. but our goal is to provide those chatbot type interfaces similar to ChatGPT. We're waiting for Microsoft to release the Copilot chat for GCC environments. That's within the next month, and we're excited about that. That'll give our user base really great access to that type of tool. It's very similar to a ChatGPT, and so we're going to get them used to that. And then as we mature our program and we get ready for it, then we'll start looking at a Copilot for M365, and so that they can start using that type of tool with the documents that they're using every day. And so you can use it and start streamlining some of those tasks, automate some things. The exciting thing, in my opinion, is that natural language interface where you can just ask it questions. It really brings this incredible capability into everyone's hands, right? Because you don't have to have a computer science degree. You don't have to be familiar with coding languages or SQL or anything like that. You don't have to be a professional technologist to use these tools. You can just ask it questions. And that is a huge leap forward in capability. And so I'm very excited to get our program mature and get these tools into the hands of our folks so that they can start using them. And I don't know, maybe use AI to help design a better, safer bridge or better, safer roadway, right? Because those tools are going to be embedded in the products that they use to do that. And so if they're building something or designing something and the AI tool in the background is looking at it and then can suggest, hey, I saw you did this in this design. Have you considered this other thing? And maybe that's going to spark some ideas, and then they start talking about it with their colleagues and they evaluate that. And of course, we're nowhere near the point where we can allow AI to make those decisions, right? But to be able to suggest those things and really drive that conversation, and to be able to take a well-seasoned design person and all of their experience and their years of knowledge and enhance that with new ideas, and at the same time take somebody that maybe is new to roadway design and give them the knowledge through an AI tool that will bring them up to a level where they can start having more detailed conversations with their experienced colleagues, right? So you shorten that time to get them up to speed or up to a level with the guys that have been doing it and women that have been doing it for years and years, right? And which is that's really impressive for us. Like, we're really excited about getting there.
Yeah, that's something I don't think we have anywhere on the slides. It's just using it to train and onboard people, those kind of things. That's important. Another thing you mentioned, which is interesting, was around it just being part of the tools that exist today. That's as a software company, that's something we've been trying to figure out. Is eventually do these tools just live in the same systems we have today, or are they whole new applications? And there might be some that are one and some that are the other. That's very interesting. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I've seen some companies embed it into their tool, and it's still early we're 3 years into talking about Gen AI, so it's still early in that technology. But I foresee it just being part of everything that we do. It's just going to be there. Yeah.
All right, great. Joe, your thoughts with your clients on chatbots, natural language, all that stuff?
Yeah, I'll pick up on that thread. I think that's exactly right. Like, maybe for a while, like, we saw this emergence of these chatbots that were kind of standalone, and it was like the capability there. It caught everybody's attention, and immediately our imagination was like all these, things we could do now. But the shift of the things I'm working on with a lot of customers is exactly what you two were just talking about. Like, how do how do we, like, rather than having this separate chatbot that lives over here, and then I log into all my work systems and do work over here, it's like, how do we merge those things together? And how do we use this power of conversation to help people get work done? And that is the game changer. It's like, you imagine when we're all sitting at our desks all day and we interact with software and we click on things and we use menus and drop down menus and buttons and we get stuff done. But now we can use more conversational ways to interact with computers. And so that is a game changer. And we still have a long way to go to get there. However, I think we're starting to figure that out. Is like, how do we, and what, to me, that's where we've started to move away from simple chatbots towards these integrated systems where maybe I use the chatbot to understand what the person's trying to do, but then I need to wire that chatbot up. Actually, I kind of like this diagram on the slide. I need to wire that chatbot up so it knows what to do. I don't want the chatbot just to give me an answer to, like, what's the best recipe for coleslaw. I want it to help me get something done and say, hey, I want you to look this up, or I want you to, like, upload this document or summarize this, or tell me what are the most important things I should work on in my queue. And that means we need the chatbot to talk to these underlying systems. And so there's a lot of work to do there. And I think we're sort of in the middle of that right now, of like, how do we have this, like, toolbox that the chatbot then can kind of go to the toolbox and say, okay, this user's asking me for this. Here's the tool I need. Now I'm going to go to this part of the application, and I'm going to go get that and bring it back and help the user on that. So that's a lot of what I'm seeing right now is work on that. And how do we do that? Like, as soon as we get away from, just cool kind of uses of chatbots that aren't really work related, as soon as we start to rely on them for tasks, like we need to know that they're completing tasks successfully. We need to be able to sort of be confident, like, hey, I'm asking this chatbot to update this case file or change the status of this ticket. I need to know that it's doing it right. And so there's lots of progress there, and also lots more hard work to do. So that's a lot of what I'm seeing on this front.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Brad, what do you think? Chatbots, natural language, what are you seeing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll build off of what Joe and Jeramie have already kind of presented, and I'll give a very specific example that links back to where I started, here at New York MTA, Metro North Railroad. Our first priority, our first phase of strategy of applying AI in a very logical phase, non-overwhelming approach is focusing on safety, security, and service delivery to our customers. And under the safety category, I'll say we're really focused more on the natural language processing for efficiency and safety of our workers. A recent case is we just provided thousands of hours of radio conversation in relation to, we have FRA requirements for those that were in the railroad, the Federal Railroad Administration. There's a Rule 22 that requires us to follow certain, transcriptions and communications when we're talking on the right of way, we call it, on the railroad. And we provided hours and hours, thousands of hours of radio conversation in relation to this Rule 22, into the system. And even with the garbled radio transmissions, the model was able to transcribe, the conversations and then identify mismatches in information as a readback. So it was able to say, hey, that we know that we were supposed to be saying X because we knew the situation. But when the AI provided the review and kickback in the transcript, it quickly highlighted for us where if the system, the AI, wasn't seeing or hearing the correct language, well, obviously it's a highlight for us and a risk that likely the receiver of that information, right, as a fellow worker, was not receiving accurate information. So this allows us to highlight when in the field, we're in field positions, we have construction workers, we have maintenance workers working on live tracks, near live tracks, et cetera. This allowed us to really highlight where we're having inaccurate communications that could put our workers at risk. One of the next steps we're doing with this is we're going to provide obviously more radio conversations to help continue to train and mature the natural language modeling. And then we're also going to use this as we sit down from a training curriculum perspective. So we're taking what we're looking at and we're learning, with the AI and with the NLP, we're able to highlight the discrepancies. We're then able to mitigate and train employees on what we've identified as wrong communication, and then work with them to make sure that they're using the right communication forward. So not only is it a safer work environment, but we're absolutely helping show that we're meeting Rule 22 of the Federal Railroad Administration and our requirements as a government agency.
Yeah, that's a really great example of how it can be applied for safety. I guess anything where you've got a lot of monitoring to do is a great example. So you can, if you did that, I don't know how we did that before. I assume there was some sort of spot check where you would check a certain percentage of those conversations, by hand, by human. And now you can just do it all. Really, it sounds like that's really.
But
good.
I'm with Jeramie. I'll just say I mentioned this too, going back to your 2 years, we are absolutely in that heavy pilot phase. And a little bit later, I'll talk about when you ask about risk management and governance, there's a process to that, because if you move too quick, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So you got to move smart, use the data, go through your risk. And this itself, the example I just explained, I know there's some Amtrak folks on the phone who may be interested in speaking more on this, but we definitely are in the pilot phase amongst other things. So I just want to make that clear as well.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is take another quick poll. So I'll hand back to Kelsey for a second.
So this poll is just asking how chatbots and natural language processors can improve workflow efficiency in your agency. So again, similar to the last poll, whether you've already implemented these technologies or this is something that what area do you think that it could kind of help with the most? And I'm really wishing that we had risk management in here right now, as we both, that was two of the topics we kind of discussed during this.
All right.
We can pretend like that's other, just kind of seeing where we think that chatbots and NLPs can improve your efficiency.
Yeah, let's give it a few seconds.
Saving.
Folks are saying.
Almost there.
Yeah. Wait until we get to 50-ish, about half. No, I think we're good. I'm going to move on. Thanks, folks.
Yep.
Okay. All right. It's an interesting breakdown. Efficiency and admin sort of equal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, customer satisfaction is an interesting one. I don't think that's exactly the audience here. So but I do think there's a lot of I know a few folks that I've spoken to in that space are also very excited about what their companies are doing around that. So yeah, all right, very good. So let's switch gears again, and we're going to talk about data-driven insights and analytics. I think this is another area where there's a lot of promise. Because I think, Jeramie, you said, capital programs just generate an enormous amount of data, right? There's everything you do, pre-construction, feasibility and impact and all that stuff. Then you've got your actual design docs, contracts, changes, just all the communication that goes back and forth. And then the tricky part is that these things often live in different systems. So, how can an AI help with that? I think predictive maintenance is just one example of that. The idea being that an AI system could look across these multiple data sources and sort of pinpoint which assets might need attention and when. But there's probably plenty of other aspects of a capital program that could be applied to from just picking the right contract on a project, picking the right projects in the first place, possibly scheduling resources, all those kind of things. So Joe, as you said, you work with a lot of government clients. What are some of the things you're seeing around analytics and decision making?
It's interesting. Like the last couple of years, it's generated so much excitement and activity around unstructured data and chatbots and things like that. But and so in some ways, like kind of the predictive use cases and structured data sort of took a back seat for a little while, but now I'm, starting to see that come back in a lot of the conversations I'm having, and partly it's because there's so much value in getting insights out of structured data, like in the world of government that we all work in. There's lots of insights and knowledge buried in those structured data sets. And so now I'm seeing kind of data-driven insights for things like predictive maintenance or other high stakes, high values things kind of make a comeback. And someone made a comment earlier, I think the prediction or made a prediction that these things are going to merge together, where now we can start to we can use natural language in conversation, but ultimately we might be interacting with structured data and predictions. And so I would flag this as another area where maybe it's important to separate the reality from maybe kind of what sometimes those of us, on the tech side, we get a little over our skis, and we feel like AI can do anything, and I think it's important to be sort of really have a thoughtful, clear understanding of where and when do we want to make a prediction, what data are we going to use, what technique are we going to use, and be really, to me, this is the part of AI that it still is complicated. It takes a lot of know-how and expertise of how do we take structured data and how do we build a predictive model that is valid, that we can rely on. And so my message from kind of the platform side of things is for those in government, you need to trust who you're working with, and lots of folks on the AI enthusiast side, we run around making claims about AI, but really working with someone who knows the space, and I think it knows how to apply AI in the right way is important for a use case like predictive maintenance or these other types of things that the folks on the call work on. So that's just some comments there, Richard, of kind of what I'm seeing, and again, I am excited. I do think on the predictive side, we're starting to see these tools move fast on ways we can merge these two big areas of chatbots and NLP together with structured data and insight. So I'm looking forward to the next few years on that front.
Yeah. We're clearly going to have everybody back in a year or two and do the webinar again and see how much has changed at that point. Let me switch to Brad. Brad, what are you seeing at Metro North around data-driven insights, decision-making, analytics, all that stuff?
Yeah, sure. I'll link first. It kind of links to the, me, there's a theme with me. I always lean towards more risk, and I know we're going to finally get there, but I'll give a little teaser. So, because you mentioned data, and then I'll move to predictive maintenance and what we're doing as far as pilots in that category. Some of the data things that does come out of our risk rubric, but is data quality and integrity, data, linkages and provenance, data diversity, data privacy. So we're going through all of those type of data audits and verifications and validations as we stand up through our risk model, but as we stand up any use cases that we're building, including the one I gave in the previous question, as an example. As we collect that data and we follow our own logic and our policies here for New York State, because New York State has a set of state guidelines for artificial intelligence, as well as the New York MTA as a state agency. We not only follow those areas, but then we apply them, and we have started to apply them in a few other areas of use cases, particularly around predictive maintenance. And they may be of interest as an example, or hopefully folks in other industries can see where these couple of examples I'll give quickly can maybe link to something you're interested in or something you're trying to look into and build in your own agency or industry. So one of the things is it's quite a few different aspects of what we call a train inspection portal. So what we're trying to do is have wayside AI technologies. So when I say wayside, beside the train tracks, I'll use simple language, that allows us to do train and track-based inspections quickly without having to bring our assets and wait for us to bring our assets into our large shops. So bring them off the right of way, off the tracks, into shops for regularly scheduled maintenance. So how do we get ahead of that in a predictive way? And some of the things we're looking at is like a wheel impact load detectors, low hanging equipment detectors, wheel profilers. So basically if you're coming in, we do daily washes on our trains. They're required as part of just how we run our system. As our assets, our rolling stock is coming in for the daily wash before morning rush hour or at the end of the day after evening rush hours, we would have AI and are testing to have AI in that car wash area, right, as they're rolling through to be able to quickly look at things like the wheel true, strength or issues with our steel, right, issues with cracks, something hanging off of the train or the asset. Those type of things that we can quickly fix, maintain without having to wait till something actually happens on a service revenue track and we're having to pause in the middle of a busy rush hour coming in and out of New York City. So that's one example of where we're looking at train inspection portals. And the only other thing I'd mention is, this is even a bigger, we've had success with this. This is actually live, operational, not in pilot any longer, but we have what's called a laser train. And basically the laser train uses geospatial information systems, GIS data that we've created internally, linking different platforms here within the agency. And we're able to automatically turn on a laser system that runs underneath a train, an asset, that allows us when we're going through certain territories during the fall that has high leaf season, leaf falling, foliage falling onto the tracks. That causes a lot of risk for us. It has buildup on the tracks, the wheels get involved, and AKA what happens is you have slide and slippage going into stations, which we don't want to have, right, for many reasons. So this laser train is able to identify where there's buildup on the tracks and then literally laser the actual buildup of substance on the track to ensure that we have less slippage. That's a safer environment, that's a more secure environment. And it's also saved us, I would say, we're approaching, I'll just say, hundreds of thousands of dollars in other costs, like fuel, water, and other things that we used to have to use to clean the tracks. So again, we're using data for the predictive side, and then we're, using AI for the predictive side, and then we're also using AI, I will say predictive as in we are getting ahead of foliage buildup on our train tracks. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that resonates with some on the call, but I wanted to give some real life examples in addition to the data insights that I mentioned.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, cheaper and more efficient is a winner. And again, foliage on tracks, it's a specific thing. I'm guessing a few years ago, no one was predicting that. So it's just interesting to see how these things turn out. Jeramie, anything to add on maintenance or decision making or analytics?
Yeah, so I'm going to take Brad was really, in my opinion, like advanced in what he was talking about, like doing these really cool projects with AI. I never even thought that leaves on a track would be a problem. Like that never would have occurred to me. It's absolutely amazing. And it sounds like you're doing some really cool things in that space. But I want to take a step back and talk about data and how where we are right now is still getting our data ready for using some of these AI capabilities, right? And there's never going to be a perfect moment where our data is absolutely ready, right? It's progress over perfection, right? But the steps along the way are vital, right? Doing your data dictionary, doing your working with the business, and making sure that every division within NDOT understands that when we use a particular term, that they all know what that term is and they all use it the same way, right? And then when we look at our systems and that term is in there, we understand what that means. All of the systems use the same terms. So we have a data glossary, we have the data dictionary, we have all of these pre-work things to get our data to a point where it's usable by these systems. And so we've made great strides in that process. Kudos to our data management office and our business units that have gone through this endless, hours-long meetings to get it ready. But now we've gotten it to the point where we can actually start looking at use cases and what does that look like? How can we take the data that we have in these disparate systems and clean them up, make sure that we're not missing anything, and then use that for these data-driven decision makings, use AI tools to correlate data that you wouldn't necessarily think to correlate. If you look at traffic patterns out on the roads and you look at wastewater in the wastewater systems that we monitor, and you correlate high traffic areas with increases in soil in that wastewater, what conclusions can you draw from that? Is there, is that particular stretch of roadway, is the maintenance on it need to be accelerated? Are we looking at something like the underlying ground under that roadway is eroding into the ecosystem? And it's not something that you would easily detect just visually, but if we can correlate that stuff and make those connections, imagine how instead of having a section of roadway wash out, we can get in ahead of that and do some repairs or shore it up and prevent that high cost repair with a lower cost, preventive maintenance. And so we're getting to the point where we're looking at those use cases. And so we're driving forward with that and looking at our data governance and data classifications. And, you go through all of those processes to get to the point where Brad and his team are, where you can do these really cool projects. And so you've got to start with the basics, and you've got to make sure your data, you at least understand your data, right? Like get the data about your data, the metadata that is so long, and you build on that. And it becomes this roadmap, and the further along you get, the faster you progress. And it becomes very exciting because you can see the changes, right? And you can start seeing the incredible possibilities that are out there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there's typically a ton of work just getting to, I think understanding your data is probably half the battle in some cases. But then once you've done that, you can really move forward onto more interesting applications of what you're looking at. Yeah. All right. Let's move on then. And panel, we're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit here because we have two more topics we wanted to chat about. We have a little over 10 minutes left. And folks, if you do have questions for the panel, keep those coming in. I'm seeing them here on my platform. So, any questions at all, just keep those fired in. So we've chatted about this already a little bit around risk management. It's kind of an adjacent topic if you like to, it's all about decision making and analytics and that kind of thing. So it's something that comes up all the time when we talk to our customers about their CIP, their TIP or their STIP, depending on what you have, because these things are complicated. They're complex. This report, which is a couple of years old now from Forbes, tried to sort of categorize the reasons why projects might be delayed and how AI could help. And maybe unsurprisingly, you can see that their scope change was the top issue, and then resource challenges, communications. So, I think all three of you have worked a lot in this area of risk management. So, Brad, I want to start with you. How are you seeing AI affect this kind of critical issue for public agencies?
Sure, and I know we're at close to time, so I won't go where I was intending to go. I'll keep this very direct. To the exact answer at hand. So AI for risk management, the first place and the priority place that we've agreed to lean into as a commuter railroad here at Metro North is to focus on how can we get our data sources together and the analysis together using AI to help us better predict cost modeling. This kind of links back to something I think Jeramie said earlier in the beginning in his intro. We've realized, we have countless accounting analysts, economics folks, staff, great resources. But when we need something done as far as making a really big decision, right, a really large investment, it's almost like asking for, something out of Congress. It's asking for endless reviews, PowerPoints, 50 Excel files, et cetera. So how do we take all that knowledge and history? We're working on this now, again, in pilot phase, like we've all said on this call, most of the panel, but we're looking to say, hey, if we're going to make a big decision that's millions of dollars or multiple millions of dollars, which many times they are at an agency our size, we should first pause and let the AI help us look at the likelihood of long-term, short-term, and midterm impacts, various scenarios of likely environmental impacts that could change the operating environment, the obsolescence of some decision, whatever that may be, in order for us to have better data-informed decisions before we humans in the loop, the executive teams, make that big decision to invest that amount of taxpayers' money. So it's really, all these processes have been in place. It's not that our agency has not been doing that, but it was not able to be done in a expedited and efficient way. It took too long, in our opinion, and now because of the environment we all live in, with larger environmental impacts and changes, we have more floods, we have more storms, we have electricity and fuel issues, we have cost cuts, federal, state, local level, budget decreases, budget cuts, et cetera. We have to be able to more quickly respond to that volatile and uncertain environment. So AI is allowing us to really focus on, I think it's your big one there, planning and scope issues as far as preventing cost overruns and better cost financial decisions.
Yeah, and that's pretty much exactly where we are with a lot of our clients right now. So it's kind of mirroring what you guys are saying. We started with the first application we built was an application to summarize public comments on projects or capital programs. An important project, you might get thousands of comments, and it was kind of an AI look at figuring out the true sentiments of those comments. That was the first thing that came out from our customers. Now we're moving into exactly what you're talking about right now. How do you pick the right projects, and then how do you predict where they're going to end up, so that you don't have schedule delays or cost delays? And that's exactly what we're working with some of the folks on the call in the audience right now. So it's very exciting. Jeramie, I'll go to you next. AI and risk management, what are your thoughts?
So at NDOT, we're just getting into the realm of looking at the possibilities that AI brings to the table when we look at risk management. Looking at the pie chart up there, the ones that I'm going to mirror some of what Brad said, the ability to look at cost overruns and do some predictive analysis on what the maintenance costs are going to be for particular areas. What is, if we're looking at a new project where we're building a brand new roadway, using AI to help try and figure out what that cost is going to look like. And then looking at the severe weather disruptions, right? Nevada, especially southern Nevada, keeps getting hotter and hotter. We have 4 days in the summer that are over 120 now than we've ever had in history. What does that do to our roadways? And being able to take some of that historic data and use AI to see the previous trends and then do some predictive, if this trend continues, what does that mean for our roadways? What are the new materials out there that we can use that will help reduce the impact of some of that heat and the severe weather? And then, the supply chain disruptions. I'm not sure how much AI could have predicted the impact of the tariffs on costs. But we've seen just a huge inflation rate in construction costs over the last 5 to 6 years. And so using AI to help predict some of that, and again, take that historic data to extrapolate what the future might look like if that continues, so that we can then decide which projects within the state of Nevada are the most important, and where are we going to spend our money? Because there's not really new revenue coming in. Trying to get the legislature to identify new sources of revenue can be difficult. So we're kind of operating on not same amount of money, but it's very similar amounts of money that we've had for the last several years. And so we've got to make those decisions. And I think we're seeing the possibilities that AI like I said, brings to those conversations and those capabilities.
Great. Joe, anything to add on risk management?
I'll make one super quick comment. Like, I think the things we're seeing on the slide here are more sophisticated, complicated things we're asking AI to do. And right now there's a lot of misinformation out there of, oh, we can just throw something at ChatGPT and we can have AI, tell us these types of things. But this stuff is harder, and we need to have, a more careful design of data and a system. And we need to use AI by practitioners who understand the risk management space, so that we actually get valid answers out for these high stakes. So that's I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm really glad all three of you mentioned the a bit of caution here is necessary, right? Because it's so new, and you gotta rely on your data governance and your other technology compliance regulations that will most likely need to be adapted as we go through this. Really good. We had a final poll question really quickly. Kelsey, you want to explain it?
Yep. So this, as we introduce AI into our organizations, we know that there are a lot of barriers. And so we're just curious to see what you believe within your agency is the biggest barrier, whether that's resistance to change, lack of technology, data privacy concerns, unclear governance, or something else potentially.
Yeah, go ahead and submit. This is a good lead into it, the final thing we're going to talk about, which is just those sort of adoption challenges. So curious. Pretty spread out. Resistance to change lower than privacy concerns or just governance, right? Interesting. All right, so I'm actually going to skip over. This was actually a report, which when you get the slides, feel free to go through it. This is from that same E&Y report from 2024 about what they predicted or thought the common adoption challenges were. So let's just take a minute to talk about this, because we it's such a big technological change. You have to consider the human side anytime there's big changes like this. And I think this, as we've all said, it's all moving so fast that it could be quite a difficult issue for public agency leaders to tackle. So I'm going to start with Jeramie. As we start rolling out these things, what are some of the best practices? What do you need to think about in terms of adoption, change management, those kind of things?
I think the biggest thing to address is the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that your end users are going to have over what this means for them and their career. What's it mean for my job, right? And I'm going to steal a phrase that I heard in a conference, I don't remember when. I don't look at AI as artificial intelligence. I would prefer to look at it as augmented intelligence. These are tools to help you do your job better. Your job is not going away. It might change a little bit, but the goal is to give you tools to enhance that, make it more efficient, help you make better decisions, and improve your performance. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge in getting AI adoption throughout your organization.
Yeah, great point. Joe?
I'll just agree with that. I think that's a great way to think about it. It's like, ultimately, this is a tool that helps people work better. The more we can think of AI as an assistant to a human, the better. And we're not trying to automate things that shouldn't be automated, that require a human brain to handle and make the right decision.
Yeah, awesome. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll follow the two gentlemen before me. One of my top priorities is human in the loop, AI or augmented. Technology should help the humans make decisions, but particularly for a state agency, a government, they should not be making any decisions on behalf of the citizens or the employees or the constituents that we're trying to help as a government agency. The last two things I would just say that we've learned, and it was part of your poll that you had to run through there quickly, I would say set your governance. If you want to know more about that, I'm happy to talk to you about it, but set governance. It's absolutely key before you just start putting a bunch of sexy new ideas all over your buildings, your businesses, and your infrastructure. And then have a strategy, slow down, setting governance and ensuring right data we talked about facilitates slowing down and ensuring you have not only that governance, but that you have a phased approach to how a strategy to how you want to implement AI to help augment or be a tool in your toolbox to help you meet your vision and your mission of your agency or your organization. So I'll pause there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, folks. Kelsey, we're at time. I don't know if we have maybe time for one question from the audience that we can ask the panel, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. Our one question that we can answer, as more and more businesses are being encouraged to utilize AI, what infrastructure, as in electrical grid updates, are being made due to large consumption of electricity when AI is being utilized? So how are we?
Yeah, good question. That's a good. We didn't talk about that. That's a good question. No. The electrification and the needs of that. Somebody want to take a stab at that?
I'll throw something out there real quick. I think that's something you have to plan for, right? If you're doing AI tools or you're building out your own AI environment, you really have to take that into consideration. How are you going to get the power? Where is it going to go? I know big organizations like AWS, Microsoft, Google, like they have that plan for their environments. But AI, like really utilizing it, does take an incredible amount of power.
Joe, are you going to add something there?
No, I think that's well said.
Fully agree. We're not there yet. We're not draining or taking that much power at this point with our pilots, but it absolutely would be and is already listed in our risk rubric as part of our analytics for appropriate governance. So it's absolutely in there. So a great question.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
well,
everyone.
I just
Kelsey,
wanted to thank everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in today's conversation. As I mentioned earlier, this was recorded and will be sent out to already. And any questions that we weren't able to get to, we will address with the speakers and then send out with the webinar as well. But I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Yes.
Glad.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
Everybody.